If you love the West Tigers as much as we do, and that's an awful lot, you're welcome to come and join us in our discussions on the West Tigers podcast forum. Our forum is the #1 forum for West Tigers fans to talk everything West Tigers. westtigerspodcast.com.au/forum. We hope to see you there soon.
West Tigers podcast, episode number 408. This is a bi-week edition. Very special guest tonight. I'll introduce him in a minute. He's from another West Tigers themed podcast, but I'm joined firstly by Steve and Joel. Joel, it was rumours you had disappeared, but you're back.
Work commitments, that's all. I hadn't run out of puff, hadn't given up on the team, just couldn't be here. But I'm energised and ready to go.
And Steve, no Gary tonight, so I'm hoping you're going to step up to the plate. We're going to discuss a potential round one team for 2026. We've got a bit of a marathon edition of Buy, Sell, Hold, and we're going to lay into Richo's latest podcast and what you thought about that.
Yeah, well, there's no Gary, there's no Tigers this weekend. There's only 2.5 days of Test cricket. It's been pretty average weekend, really.
Cricket was a little bit disappointing. Australia going down to South Africa. But our special guest, joined by Rob Bechara of the West Tigers Life podcast. First off, thank you, Rob, for coming on here tonight. You're going to flip the favour on Tuesday night. But first off, mate, tell us a little bit about the West Tigers Life podcast that you and Josh, I should say, have been at it for a few years.
Well, thank you all for inviting me on your podcast. I'm a regular listener. Doing a midweek podcast and a Sunday podcast, I generally don't listen to both your podcasts till after I've done ours because I don't want any of that sort of subconsciously being in my memory. Look, Westlife podcast is going really well. We've got about 1,900 subscribers. We get quite a decent audience now. We're trying to steer everyone towards YouTube. I got invited on that by Josh Barnett. That's his baby. I've been doing that, I'm not sure now, 4 or 5 years. But we're trying to steer everyone to YouTube. The last sort of 3 or 4 weeks have been really good. We're getting 1,600 to 2,700 views, depending on who's on it. We had Michael Shamus on a couple of weeks ago, which went quite well. But yeah, look, I mean, I think just, in terms of West Tigers stuff, I just think it's really good that everyone's trying to put some content out there. So the more content we get and the better quality it is, that's kind of my goal. Like, I love having a gas bag, as you're well aware, Eddie, but I think these sort of cross collabs should be a little bit more often. I was very competitive with all this stuff, but I've kind of let that go, mostly because you guys are actually really kind to me at the start of the year, getting involved with West Tigers Unite. So, just happy to be here and looking forward to talking to Steve and Joel. And I know Gary will be missing this so badly. He would have loved to have been here tonight, but we'll catch up and have a chat on Tuesday night at the Orange Grove Hotel.
Well, they give us plenty to talk about, the West Tigers, Rob, and Gary wouldn't admit it, but I've definitely learned a few things listening to Coach Adele this year. I really enjoy that. I know you've only started that this year, but that's been your Sunday night version, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. And look, I can't speak for you guys, but for me, when it comes to rugby league, I'm all meat. I want to talk about the game. I want to talk about the controversies. I'm really not a person that cares, what a certain player's favourite colour is or what they eat for dinner or stuff like that. I love talking rugby league, whether it's my own team or other teams. So, the Adele pod's really good. He gives it the coach's perspective. I'm purely a fan. I'd like to think I'm an expert, but I'm definitely not. I'm just a very passionate fan. It kind of works well together. I'm not really good at the hosting stuff. I'm still getting used to that. But it seems to work and we wing it and everyone seems to love it. So we're very pleased with how that's going.
Final question, mate, before we rip into the podcast itself. Your favourite moment supporting the Tigers? Was it grand final? Have you got a particular game or memory or season?
Definitely the 2005 preliminary final against St George.
You were there?
I was there, limited tickets, got my whole family there, grandstand seats. I won't be like this tonight, but if I think about it when I'm on my own, I actually get a little bit choked up about it. I think my favourite moment is just the boys running out to warm up that night on the field, and we were meant to be outnumbered, and that roar still gives me goosebumps, Eddie. It's just one of the greatest moments ever. And then obviously for Benji to score nice and early in the game and get the ball rolling, we weren't meant to be a hope in hell that day. It was all red and white themed. You know, Sydney Swans were meant to beat the West Coast Eagles, and Saints were meant to beat us. And I got a little bit of a soft spot for the Swans, but with all that red and white crap going on, I was actually cheering West Coast Eagles. So, it was probably the best night as a West Tigers supporter I've ever had.
Joel, you were a big part of that West Tigers Unite, where we did a few podcasts earlier this year to try and, fast track some of that board upheaval that's happened. But I think Rob mentioned it. The podcast game is a little bit different to the, mainstream media or sports game where you're seen as rivals or whatnot. And, I watch a bit of Denon Kemp or James Graham or Matty Johns, and they all, Hello Sport, and they all seem to appear a little bit on each other's platforms and try and help each other out.
Well, when we're all sitting at Campbelltown or all sitting at Leichhardt or all watching the West Tigers in some form, we're all on the same page. We're all doing the same thing. We all have our hearts in the same place. So why not? I mean, more perspectives, more voices. I think it all adds to the mix. And, that's why we've had a few other people on recently like Jordan, just to hear some different perspectives as well. I think it's just a testament, I suppose, if I'm being in my most optimistic, a testament to the West Tigers that the West Tigers has such a huge fan base of people that aren't just casual fans, but live and breathe the brand. And there's got to be something in that, and maybe a little bit of it's a Stockholm syndrome, and we've come this far and we can't give up. But look, it's going to be sweet one day. I can't say when that will be, but one day it will be.
Steve, have you got any other sports podcasts that you like to tune into? I know Gary likes to, listen back to his own voice in our own podcast, but you've got any outside of that, mate?
Yeah, well, I enjoy listening to ours when Gary's not on, so I think I've listened to two of those in the last 3-4 years. I used to listen to the Gus Gould one. I enjoyed that, but I'm off that now after his efforts in the last couple of weeks. I like the Howie Games. I often think that's a really good podcast. Yeah, I do listen to the West Tigers Life podcast from time to time. But apart from that, that's probably about it, I reckon.
Rob, do you dabble in other sports, or you stick to sort of the league side of the podcast game?
I love a lot of sports. I'm not actually big on podcasts. So the only other, for example, rugby league podcast I've listened to this year would be Terrell May on the Bye podcast with James Graham, Richo on that same podcast. Look, anything Richo's on, I want to hear. Not because I'm just a West Tigers supporter, but I kind of live on every word he says, because we really need some hope and reassurance. Even the 9-minute spiel that you'll be talking about later, he just has to get out there and say stuff, because when you're kept in the dark, you start getting doubts in your head. So I think us fans, given that we've had 14 years without finals, we need plenty of reassurance and hope.
We'll go round the table on this one, a bit of a West Tigers themed segment. Joel, one word to describe our season so far?
I've actually gone for numbers. I've gone for 1/3. So I'm happy to say probably 1/3 of what we've put out there on the field this year I'm pretty happy with. And it gives us hope. 1/3's been pretty darn good, pretty competitive, but of course that leaves 2/3, which is still a little bit flat, still a little bit reminiscent of where we've been the last few years. So yeah, I've gone 1/3, something different.
Steve?
I'm going to say promising, Eddie, because I think we started the season quite well. Then we fell in a bit of a hole, and I was really worried that we were regressing to the Tigers of old, and that was going to be a theme for the rest of the year. But then I thought we hit back pretty well against Penrith. We didn't get the chocolates, but we played that brand of footy we've been playing earlier in the year, which sort of told me that the drop was really around the whole Galvin situation. So you take that out, and I think what we're seeing is pretty promising. We all knew it was going to be a slow burn, but I think we're getting there.
Your word, Rob?
Eddie, my word's underachieved. And I say that with the benefit of hindsight. We could easily have won round 1 against the Knights, round 4 against the Warriors, round 5 against Para, and round 11 against South. So given all that, I think we should be higher on the table with our draw. But obviously, if you sort of looked at where we were at the end of last year and having 3 spoons in a row, you wouldn't say underachieved. But I think looking back now, we should be higher up on the ladder. I think our best team is quite a good team, although we're probably a couple of first graders short that, we'll probably talk about later. But I'm really happy with how we've played and the fact of how we're competitive we are.
Rob, we were talking about this the other day. If Galvin holds that ball over the line and we get a penalty on that hip drop and score a try, then we're one game out of the top 4. It's amazing, right?
It is, and look, I mentioned it on, I think, with Adele last Sunday night on our podcast. I actually was flattered that Ivan Cleary said in his halftime talk, or what they mentioned on TV with Jake Duke, that the Tigers aren't going to go away in the second half. And I think we've earned the respect of a lot of other teams. Like, they probably think they're going to beat us, but they know they're going to have to really play to their full strength to get over the line with us. And I think we're just lacking that little bit of polish, a little bit of class, in some cases a little bit of tactical awareness on the team, in terms of decisions we make and game style. But look, overall, to say we'd have 5 wins now, that's more than the wins we had combined in 2022 and 2023. So we should be happy with it. But as I say, I'm only saying that with the rearview mirror on because I think we should have won definitely those 4 games. And perhaps we maybe should have lost to St George given the way they fought back in the second half. But you can't win every close game. But I think we've been the better team in those games that we lost.
I think 11 of the 13 games were right in. And like you said, Rob, there's definitely 2 or 3 of them that got away. Joel, just on the theme of mid-season awards, I know me and Gary probably gave a few out 2 weeks ago during our other bye, but I'll get you guys' thoughts on this. Our best players so far?
It's a hard one, isn't it? Terrell May has been consistent. Taruva's been consistent. Buller has been really classy at times. And then you've got Appy in the mix as well. So hard to sort of find a winner out of those 4. Stafford Toa, I suppose, maybe for his last 6 weeks where he's just consistently beaten that first man. There's a few there. I don't know if you guys have one that stands out. Maybe Terrell by a nose, maybe?
Yeah, I've gone with Terrell May. Just the minutes he's pumped out through the season, the consistency of his performance. Like, he hasn't, he hasn't gone through and punched through the line and set up tries left, right and centre. That's not his go. But his minutes are incredible. His meters are amazing. He hardly misses a tackle. He just does his job so well. And also, I remember Benji saying that he's so good around the team. And a story I got told about him was a lot of the younger forwards are really clinging to him at training, and he's doing he'll do all the extras, and he'll say to the guys, "Come on, you come out and do the extras with me." And he's bringing them along and giving them a level of professionalism that maybe they haven't seen before.
Rob, I don't want to preempt what you're going to say, but when I actually sent you the rundown for this podcast, you said, can you add in most important player as well as best player? So I'm going to guess they're going to be 2 different answers for you. Am I right?
Yeah, they certainly are, and I can 100% agree with Joel and Steve as to why they would choose Terrell May, given the minutes and the quality that he's given us this year. I've gone for Jerome Buller. I think he's the point of difference in our team. He's the X factor. He's the guy that can make something happen where others can't. But I went in terms of most important Terrell May, and the reason I say most important for Terrell May is it would take at least 2 middles to replace Terrell May. Like, he's irreplaceable, and I actually don't think we could win a game without Terrell May. That's the amount of work that he does for our team. So, I'm not going to argue and say that Buller's been better than May. May's been incredible, but to me, our most important player is Buller.
I suppose, Joel, you could look at most important player a few different ways. I think Rob's looking at the makeup of our squad at the moment. Like, on the surface, I would probably say Jerome Luai is our most important player just for what he brings culturally to the side, but it's a difficult one.
It is a difficult one, and you've got that factor of that leadership and that aura that Jerome Luai brings, and when you take him out of our team, we do tend to, just lose that little bit of shine and that little bit of confidence. I feel more confident as a fan when he's playing, so certainly very important, but, not to underestimate the importance of Appy Coruscant as well. we've gone through some years with some, good first grade hookers, but he is still a step above, and what he delivers often gets sort of unseen.
Steve, most important player, is it someone different for you, or you get the same answer?
No, pretty much the same. Look, I agree with the Jerome Luai stuff. Like, I've been quite critical of some of his attacking play throughout the season, but I still maintain he's been an outstanding purchase, and he has brought a level of professionalism to our club, and he's a real leader, and he brings people with him. But I wrote down Appy as opposed to him as most important. Like, when we do something, like, I agree that the Buller comments, I think Rob's pretty on the money there. But when we need spark, when there's nothing happening on the field, it's often Appy that produces something in the middle there and gets us going forward. So, I think he's extremely important for us.
Rob, from my era, this award was always called Most Improved. And I'm a school teacher this year, and I actually changed it to Rising Star, because I always think the kids or whoever wins Most Improved think, well, that means I'm a shithouse player and I've come good this year. So I'm going to go back to the old school dinosaur ways. Who's your most improved player this year?
My most improved player is Stafford Toa. Stafford Toa used to give us one, perhaps two quality games a year. In terms of his attack now, he's absolutely dynamic. There's certainly some defensive issues he needs to sort out on that right edge. It could be the fact of certain players that are around him, but definitely he's been the most improved. And if I was to name my starting team for 2025, I probably wouldn't have had him in at centre. So I think he's made it leaps and bounds. He's definitely our number one centre. So for me, he's the most improved.
Are you okay with that, Joel? That term, Joel, most improved, or is it a bit sort of derogatory?
Oh, I think it's fair enough. I think we've all sort of sensed that Stafford Toa. I know I gave him a rap a couple of years ago saying that I saw a lot in him, but he's just never been able to consistently put games together, hamstring issues and other injuries. But as I said earlier, that ability to beat that first man is uncanny, because he doesn't look like a powerful, game-changing sort of centre, but what he's been able to do lately is just so impressive. And the good thing that we're in, I mean, I know we're being very optimistic about a team that's still sort of scratching and clawing its way away from a wooden spoon, or potentially the bottom of the finals, but there's a few guys that could fit into that sort of most improved. Buller is an example of one. Jerome, I mean, bench prop at the Roosters, wasn't really setting the world on fire, and look how far he's come along this year. So, yeah, it's a good thing to see.
Who's caught your eye, Steve?
Well, I had Stafford Toa for the same reasons that you guys have said, but I also had Sione Fainu written down. I just think his work in the middle this year has gone up a notch. His minutes have improved. His metres have improved. He's got a lot more punch than we've seen in the past. I think he's developing into an awesome middle forward. So I'd have him up there as well.
Let's do one more, Rob. Just glass half empty, this one. Biggest disappointment so far?
It's a photo finish for me, Eddie. I really expected, or I wanted more out of Royce Hunt, and I will concede he's had some good performances early in the year, as limited as his minutes were. Brent Naden's just lost it for me. I would have had him as our first centre picked, and I'm actually embarrassed to say that. He seems to have lost his speed. And given what I've seen from him this year, he actually looks more suited on the wing than centre, which is quite alarming.
Yeah, I probably agree. I don't know if Royce Hunt's carrying or has had some sort of injury, because he just sort of fell off the cliff quite quickly there. He was doing quite well and then disappeared. Steve?
Joel, I read today actually that he's had some busted ribs. I don't know how accurate that is, but he has been playing busted according to what I saw on the socials today.
And echoing the thoughts about Brent Naden, and it's what we've also spoken about as well the last few years. There's still that liability every now and then. So I don't know if Naden's time in the NRL is going to be much longer. I think he'll do well in the Super League. That's probably, I think he'd shine over there. So
I'll have to fly you to England, Joel, to do some wheeling and dealing. Richo went over there. He handed a couple of years ago, didn't he, or last year? Time last year.
Exactly. And just one quickly for improved. Like Adam Dewey for his defence has to get a mention, because he's really tightened up that part of his game.
Lucky Gary's not on tonight. But I agree with that. He has been solid defensively. Steve, your biggest disappointment before we move on to Richo's podcast?
Yeah, well, mine's a bit left field. I'm going to say Talon Da Silva. and it's not because of his on-field efforts. I got a lot of time for Talon as a footballer. I think he's going to become an absolutely brilliant 9. I love the start of the season with Appy playing the bulk of the minutes and then Talon giving him a rest at 20, 25 minutes a game. But what I really didn't like was that attitude that sort of came out that if Appy re-signs, or if the club re-signs Appy, I'm off. I'm going to go and test the open market. I'd just like to draw his attention to Harry Grant, who sat there in reserve grade for Melbourne for a few years while he waited his time, while he ripened up, and he's now one of the best players in the country, in the world, in fact, because he sort of bided his time and learnt from the best. And I just like to think Talon De Silva could do that. He could sit behind Appy, he could sit with Appy, and over the next couple of years, gradually they sort of swap their roles, where Talon becomes the more dominant 9 and Appy actually supports him. So that I'm a little disappointed in how that looks to be playing out.
The bigger question, I suppose, in regards to that is, do you want to carry a specialised hooker on the bench? Are we getting more towards sort of having that utility impact player, Connor Watson type, maybe potentially Heath Mason coming on and playing that role and not carrying a hooker? And maybe that strategy is not the right strategy for us?
Yeah, I don't like it. I got to say, I just think in the modern game, good service from dummy half is so important. Good quick ball, bringing your forwards onto the ball, getting momentum at the ruck is imperative to good attacking play. And I just think you bring a 14 on who's maybe not as quick and not as accurate with their passing and stands and then delivers rather than just delivers from the ground. It slows it all down a little bit. So I actually like the idea. If your 9 is not going to play 80 minutes, then I like having another specialist 9 sitting at 14. But that's just me.
Before we move on, Rob, how would you like to see the Appy Talon? It's not a saga, but how do you think it should play out?
Not yet.
Look, I agree with both points that Steve and Joel are making. In a perfect world, I love the proper utility at 14. I don't think we have one that's capable of that. I don't believe Heath can play dummy half, and I don't think he's got the defensive capabilities if ever we need to slot him in the halves as he's done the last couple of weeks. I'm more with Steve on playing Talon on the bench. I actually want to preserve Appy Coruscant. I want more minutes out of him. I'd love to see him know that he's going to be with us for a couple of years. And look, I'm sure Gary's mentioned this on your pod previously. You got to go back to when he was at Penrith. He was already getting reduced minutes at Penrith before he came to us. And while he's handling 80 and he loves our club and he loves Benji and he's doing everything he can for our club, I don't want to burn him out. We said this the last couple of years. In my opinion, he's easily been our best player in 2023 and 2024. And no disrespect to Talon, I think Appy's classes above Talon. Talon will be a great player. I still think he's 18 months away. He's definitely, even when he does make tackles, he doesn't get to marker quickly. He's a little bit of a weakness there, so dummy halves target him as soon as he's fallen off a tackle. But he will be great. He's put on 5 or 6 kilos in the off-season, and he's going to get better with every single season. And I've got no doubt he's going to be an elite hooker. I mean, I don't really want to lose either of them, but if forced to pick, and I know Richo and Benji are arguing over this at the moment, if forced to choose, I'd be choosing Appy because I know he gives us instant success. I think Talon's still got, improvement in him where Appy doesn't. He's there. He's elite. He's, in my opinion, the best hooker in the game.
Richo certainly be one of the men making that decision, Rob. He did drop in on the club's official podcast, 9 or 10 minutes. Probably the first time he's spoken publicly in 2 months. I think lots of West Tigers fans were getting a bit antsy, but I think his hands were tied. Were you reassured or worried by that 9 or 10 minutes that he spoke? What do you think about?
All I was worried about, Eddie, was the Campbelltown Stadium issues. I think the repercussions of not getting government funding and actually not being based at Campbelltown bothers me significantly. And I'm a Balmain boy, but I believe our future's out there. I don't want a de facto home ground at Liverpool or Combank Stadium or what have you. I thought the 9 minutes was quite padded up. I really didn't think he had much new to say or anything like that. And he did mention himself that he was hamstrung by legal issues. And I don't think we'll ever find out fully what went on there, Eddie. So while it was good to hear from him, I think it was probably timely that he did speak a couple of days ago because, we're most likely looking at playing Canberra without Luai. And who knows? I don't know if Terrell May's going to get called in now that Colin Matungi's not going to Perth. So I think we might be on the wrong end of the scoreline there. So better for him to come out with some positive stuff now after a potential poor scoreline Friday week.
Joel, we certainly don't want to go back to the days of, Ask the Boss and Tiger Town and the old CEO getting his head everywhere. But do you think it was timely that Richo spoke?
Oh, 100% it was. It was something that we needed to hear, and it's probably something with where this fan base is at that we need to hear on a semi-regular basis. Probably the amount of time, and given the amount of things that have been going on around the club, there was a bit of an information vacuum there. This pendulum swung a little bit too far, where in the old days we used to have almost daily updates from the club on what was happening or not happening or could happen or maybe happen, and we got used to that as a fan base. But you can't go the amount of time that Richo went, given what was going on, without something. We were starting to get a little bit antsy as a fan group.
Steve, any main takeaways? He was very praiseworthy for Benji Marshall. He was critical of the referees, a little subtle shot there. Anything else?
Oh, no, I think, what he said, I think we could fully expect him to say. I think his comments on the referees were good, and I think the way he said it was really well. I agree that he's been a little bit slow to respond. I think we need to hear from him three or four times a year. But I think the biggest mistake that sort of happened was when he came out, and he probably regrets this, I'd say, when he came out and said we've got 2 or 3 signings over the line, and then it went quiet for a period of time. And I think that got the fan base a little bit antsy. But apart from that, I thought his comments around the team were fair, the way the team's performing. It was safe, right? What he said was safe and secure, but what you'd expect him to say.
I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, Rob, of talking too much about referees, but I know you'd agree with this point that there is, an inherent or subconscious bias against the lower team.
There definitely is, and it's something Adele mentioned with us much earlier in the year, and he basically said we need to earn that respect and we need to be better and overcome those poor decisions. I don't think it's fair, and I don't know where you guys stand on it, but we saw it again last night with a battling team. With a try, it's a Wong, which, in every definition to me, that's not a try. If the ball's above the ground, you cannot grip it with your forearm. I don't care if it's stuck to your forearm. That's a knock on every day of the week. And the worst part for me is the NRL has come out today and backed up that decision.
And I think what's clever that what Richo's done is that's exactly the right format to make that statement. You don't want the coach saying it in the heat of the moment in the press conference straight after the game, because the adrenaline's pumping and you're under the microscope. And you're obviously, after the match, you're talking specifically about the performance of one or maybe 2 individuals, the referee and the bunker. But Richo just did an across-the-board opinion piece, which is basically what we see in the game is, and he said, I've seen it for quite a while, is that the better teams get the better judgments, and nobody can sue you over that. That's just opinion. And if it ever got into a courtroom and you looked at I'm sure if you looked at the data, you're able to crunch the data of whether there's any truth in that opinion, I think there probably would be. I mean, anecdotally, we know that we feel it because we seem to get it. But as Rob said, it happened in Newcastle. It happens every week. Every week you see it. The top 8 teams seem to get the rub of the green that bit more.
I think there's 100% method to Richo's madness. Every single word he says has been thought through and planted. Nothing is said by him by chance publicly anyway. And he just said that perfectly. It needed to be said. There needed to be a shot across the bow, and he did it in the perfect way. I thought everything this guy does, I know, he's got the stadium thing to sort out, and I know people are saying he needs to come out a little bit more often, but everything this guy does is done professionally, and from my perspective anyway, just makes me think the club is in such good hands having a guy of his experience leading us.
One of our regular segments, Rob, is buy, sell or hold. I'm going to throw the first one to you. Jerome Luai has been worth the supposed $1.3 million per season. You buying or selling that?
This is one where I think whatever answer you say you can get criticised for. I mean, if you're being objective, it's probably a hold. For me, I'm buying it. And I'd go further than that. if he's not worth the 1.3 this year, Eddie, he's worth the 6.5 for 5 years. He absolutely helps our culture. He's a natural leader. He's totally invested in the club. He's invested in the coach. And I know he's not getting the try assists or the tries on the field, but you can only see by his effort plays, whether it's him chasing Ponga in round 1 and cutting an inside pass off, or chasing Alex Johnston in round 11, when we Buller threw an intercept and he chased him down to the line. And even when we beat Cronulla in extra time, the way he was revving up the players between full time and extra time, he's an absolute born leader. I know people say, yeah, well, that's not worth $1.3 million. Probably my best analogy to go even further with that, Eddie, is to say I think Richo is the best signing we've ever had, whether it's a player or administrator. And where are we now? We're 4 losses in a row, we're going backwards, and we're most likely going to end up near the bottom of the table. Just because you're not in the 8 or you're not winning premierships doesn't mean you're not successful. Jerome's going to also attract players to the club, and everyone can see the relationship he's got with the coach. And I think it's only better for us to have him with us. And I think, I'm very hopeful of this. When he partners with Latu Fainu next year, who I hope stays healthy, I am so excited about that combination, Eddie. I think a second season with us and a few better signings in certain positions, I think we can be a lot better. But look, I guess in my heart of hearts, I'm buying it. But, the objective thing to say would be hold.
You might have just answered my next question, Rob. Is he a 7 or a 6, Jerome?
I think I'll be arguing with Gary about this quite a bit, Eddie, because I know he sees Latu as a 6. To me, Jerome's definitely a 7. And I see the way Latu straightens up the attack. He's very much Sione Katoa-like. So for me, I'd be playing Jerome at 6. But again, it's a bloody expensive 5'8" at 1.2 or $1.3 million. But I mean, I think he offers a lot more than Dylan Brown. Dylan Brown, to me, is one-dimensional. He's just run. He hasn't got a passing game. He's a good defender. But you could almost play Dylan Brown as a centre. So, yeah, I think Jerome Luai at number 6 for me, Eddie.
We hope you're enjoying this edition of the West Tigers podcast. Don't forget, if you agree or disagree, we'd love to hear your comments and thoughts on the West Tigers podcast forum. It's free to join and you can contribute directly to the podcast on the forum. Just head to westtigerspodcast.com.au/forum. We hope to see you there soon.
You buying or selling it, Joel, on Jerome, 1.3 a year?
What I would say is that I think that we've had people come into the club over the years that have come with a view to providing leadership and have been beaten by the system or have given up in the process, whereas I don't see Jerome Luai doing that. That's the difference. It's one thing to come in and be a leader. It's another thing to maintain that leadership, and we need him to maintain that leadership and not give up, because this is going to be an operation that takes more than 1 year. Yeah, we've made progress, but we're not there yet. So don't give up.
Dave?
Yeah, so I went down to the Centre of Excellence last week, and they were having their team photos. And lucky for me, my membership allows me to get in and have a photo with the team. So I was there for a couple of hours in and around the team. Men's and women's teams, the whole.
You've been everywhere, Steve. You're in the sheds after the game.
Oh, mate, I can drop a name. I can tell you.
I'm missing out.
But so there's a point to this. If you just let me get to it, right? There's a point. I looked at these blokes, that have just lost 4 games in a row. I've just been through the Galvin garbage for last month, and the stress that's caused the club. And I saw a bunch of blokes that were just so together and so united and so happy to be in each other's company. And they just looked like a high-functioning professional group of footballers. And I just sat back and I watched that and I thought, this club is going places. We are on the right track. This team is going to get there. And, yeah, it's not shown it yet. Like, we're still, bottom of the table. But what I saw was enough to tell me that this group's going to make it. And the Jerome Luais and the Terrell Mays, and the Richos, you put them all together and they're causing this to happen. It's these guys, not just what they do in the 80 minutes, it's what they do 7 days a week around the club. I've criticised some of his play on the field, and I think I'm within my rights to do that. But what he's brought to our club with others has been extraordinary, I think.
And good to see him, Rob. I know, I couldn't care less, to be honest, who wins State of Origin, but I was just relieved. One, Mitchell Moses got injured. That was good news. And two, just for Jerome to get a call up, because it's sort of, not that I don't think his form had anything to do with it. The fact that Moses was on fire and was in last year's series, but the fact now he's probably going to get to play in a winning series and play those last two Origin, it just takes that sort of mood away from, if we do drift out of finals contention for him.
Yeah, I'm really happy that he got selected. I mean, obviously, he's the second choice, but, we've had this stench that West Tigers players don't get picked for Origin or very rarely. So at least I can cheer for New South Wales with a bit of passion this time as opposed to going out for my son's birthday and not giving two hoots about the result. I think it's really important also that New South Wales win for Jerome's sake as well. We don't want him to be, look, Jerome Luai didn't play well. Look what's happened. He's come to the Tigers and regressed. So I'm really happy that he played, but again, I want him to get the win. And it's going to be interesting to see how he plays at 6:30, going back to your previous question, because, certainly Cleary can straighten the lineup. That's something Latu Fainu can do. So if he has a great game at 6, it might answer all our questions for the future.
3-0, I reckon, in New South Wales, but we'll see. I'm going to skip over the second one, Rob, for a minute. Depends what sort of mood I'm in. I might come back to it. But I'm going to go to C, which is a historical one. We've got a few historical ones thrown in. Brett Hodgson is the club's greatest ever fullback. Are you buying or selling that?
I'm selling that. I thought this
Really?
was the easiest question you threw up here. It's James Tedesco first, second and third. I mean, I know Teddy wasn't a goal kicker or a general kicker, and certainly Brett Hodgson achieved more with the club. But, I look at it this way. If you were picking a team to ensure the survival of the West Tigers franchise for one game only, win or lose, who are you putting a fullback, Tedesco or Brett Hodgson? It's Tedesco every time for me.
Wow, he's thrown me a bit there, Rob. Steve, you disagree or agree?
No, I can't disagree. I'd like to disagree because I think we're all being really too nice to each other tonight. It's obviously the first pod we've all been together, so I'd love to disagree. I forgot all about him, to be honest, but you're right. He's without doubt the premier fullback we've had.
Tedesco never had a season that Hodgson had in West Tigers colours, though, Rob. Did he really? Like, the season Hodgson had in 2005 was unbelievable.
I totally agree with you. Leading point scorer and record goal kicks and scored a lot of tries, and there's no doubt he achieved more in certain seasons than Tedesco ever did. But you just have to look at the players and what they offer a team. And can you imagine James Tedesco in that 2005 team? My God. Look, he left our club, and I know he went to a stacked team, but he won 2 premierships back-to-back. He scored the match-winning try in an Origin series a few years ago. He's played for Australia. He's done it all. And that's no disrespect to Brett Hodgson. He's probably been overall, if you look at his achievement, he's won a premiership, and James Tedesco hasn't. James Tedesco didn't even play finals. But if I'm giving you my honest answer, I don't even think it's close.
It's probably how you frame the question. Like if you say, who is the fullback that has given the most to the West Tigers, you'd say Brett Hodgson, right? But who is the best footballer that's played football for the club, you'd say Tedesco. So I reckon
deliberately, Steve, as host, I've left it open-ended because I wanted a bit of debate over it. So, you've probably got someone random like Mitch Brown or something, have you? Who you got?
Love Mitch Brown.
No, but I think we're probably all on the same page ultimately, because I think everybody in rugby league would agree that Tedesco is a generational talent. Brett Hodgson's a really good first grade fullback. But the question is, Brett Hodgson is the club's greatest ever fullback, and given that he actually accomplished something here and Tedesco didn't really accomplish a lot, maybe by a hair you'd say Hodgson is the better player from our perspective, not the game's perspective.
Rob, I'm going to combine B and D, sort of the same sort of question. Has the rugby league media played a role in the West Tigers being a dysfunctional organisation, or still plays a role, or are you buying that, or are you selling it, or it's more on us?
Both. I'm buying it because they do, but it's our fault, Eddie. We've brought it on ourselves. We've had a lot of mismanagement going back to Grant Mayer being CEO, Justin Pascoe. So, I definitely think they do play a role. And as we all know, we're suckers for a media article on the West Tigers, and they realise we bite a lot. So they love stirring up the pot and putting the negative spin on our club. So they have played their role, but I think it's our fault, Eddie.
They've definitely tarnished the West Tigers' reputation. But imagine what the club would be like, or what some of the levels of management through the years would have been like if we were blind to what was going on. If they were able to get away with stuff and it didn't end up in the Sydney Morning Herald, like the Holman Barnes Group stuff earlier in the year, and we were non-toward, we didn't know what was going on. Can you imagine what it would have been like? So there's an argument either way. Definitely, if you asked, I think, the person in the street about the West Tigers brand, they'd probably turn their nose a little bit and say that's not a good, strong brand. But if we didn't have the media bringing these stories to light, then we wouldn't be able to actually keep people to check, to actually keep on top of situations, as I said, such as that Holman Barnes thing earlier in the year, which formulated West Tigers Unite, which formulated the petition and the action, and we called it out into the public and, pretty much got exactly what we wanted.
It's a bit of a catch-22, Steve, I think. I think I might have even been listening to Rob's pod when they had Michael Chalmers on, and he sort of basically said it without saying it. Like, no one really wants to read about Cronulla or Manly or Penrith, but if you're talking Bulldogs, Parramatta, South, West Tigers, it's big news and it's big clicks, and unfortunately, we've just been bad for 13, 14 years, so they are going to write big, bad articles.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We are absolutely a powerhouse in the competition as far as the journalists are concerned. They love us, and why wouldn't they? I agree. We've brought most of this on ourselves. Our dysfunctionality has been out there for all to see, and it's just been amplified. The thing that concerns me about the power of the media these days, and maybe it's forever, I don't know, but is they have such an impact on people's perceptions. And as I've said, stacks and stacks of times, people's perception becomes reality, right? And if you're trying to get good players to come to the club and you're trying to grow your brand and get sponsorship and the like, when the perception is out there that the club's on the nose, you're just not going to get it. Now, most of that is our fault, but it's been amplified by the media and makes it harder for us to rectify some of the problems that we've created.
Rob, I'm going to have to apologise to West Tigers podcast listeners because I said I wouldn't mention this bloke again, and I think I've mentioned him in 4 podcasts straight in a row, so I'm getting used to upsetting him, but so be it. The Lachlan Galvin saga was mishandled by Shane Richardson. You buying or selling that?
Controversial answer here. I'm actually going to say hold because we don't know what happened behind the scenes. It's easy with the benefit of hindsight to say, yeah, Richo should have publicised it. Galvin would have played another 18 months. But I think from a club perspective, he does need to know where those funds were going. It's not like we were throwing $400K at him. We're probably putting him on $1 million a year. And I think you always have to go back to one fact with Lachlan Galvin, Eddie, and that's the fact that he wanted out. It wouldn't have mattered what we did. And I've mentioned on our podcast that I'd reached out to Gary and Joel about starting a petition against Gould back in early February because I was told he was going to Canterbury back then. Would have made no difference. He just would have gone to Parramatta. He just would have gone somewhere else. He did not want to stay with us. And the bottom line is, Eddie, he kept a dossier. You didn't train me hard enough in wrestle. You didn't do this. You didn't do that. He gave Benji a backhanded swipe when he was complimenting Serraldo a week and a half ago in his interview with Danny Weidler. So how can we say that Richo handled it poorly if he was always going to leave? If you believe there's something Richo could have done to keep him at the club, then you can say, yeah, he mishandled it. But he was leaving no matter what. But what the problem is, as Steve alluded to, it's ruined our last month and it destabilised our year. And when you're going into pre-season camps talking about unity and harmony and never giving up, and we saw that in all those early matches, even the Broncos matches, that just got ripped apart. You can't trust the bloke next to you if he's doing things like that. So,
is it unfair for me to say, Rob, though, like if you and guys, in and around the club knew in January or February that he wanted out, shouldn't have someone in our club maybe in pre-season thought we're going to go with Latu Finu, or do you think they just kept trying to, maybe win some games and we'll turn him around, and then Richo eventually went, nah, it's over?
Well, I think we believed that we were building the club around him. We stated that publicly. We told him he was our future, that we were going to make him this ridiculous offer, and who would think that a 19-year-old is going to knock back a 5-year deal worth approximately $1 million a year on average. So, look, we have been caught out in the past, whether it's been Richo, whether it's been Justin Pascoe, in believing that Mitch Moses was going to ditch Parramatta and come to our club, and and Lockie Galvin's going to stay. So we've put out all our eggs in one basket a couple of times, and it's backfired on us. So I can understand if someone says, yeah, he mishandled it, but ultimately what makes me sleep at night a little bit better is I don't think Richo could have done anything more than he did. And let's look at another way. If Galvin's playing the lights out, Eddie, and we're still rocking and rolling in July, heading towards the 8th, aren't your teammates thinking, why haven't we signed this bloke up? Like, they're going to be asking questions. It would have been found out eventually that he didn't want to be there. And trust me, Richo knew that Lockie was going, because I made it clear to other people that had contact with him to let Richo know, and Richo knew all about it.
Joel, just like I was probably specifically talking about just that initial press release. I don't want to do it to death because it's over, but anything in hindsight he could have done?
Well, when you've got a guy that's packing his kit bag after a loss and saying, I've got to get out of here, got to get out of this club, and apparently asked for all of those releases before he even played first grade, I think I don't think this is our failing. I don't know what more the club could have done better. I don't know why there needs to be some blame that's turned inward to the West Tigers. Can't it just be that Lachlan Galvin is a certain character and that's just the way it is? Why does it have to be that we've done something wrong along the way? By all accounts, Benji was 100% prioritising Lachlan Galvin. It's what upset John Bateman, because Bateman was saying that, all Benji cares about is the youngsters, and obviously he meant, I reckon you could probably say Galvin. I think it's just a reflection on Galvin. I don't think it's a reflection on West Tigers. And as Rob said, a very, very important thing at the start there, he said, we don't have all the information, and I can pretty much guarantee there's a whole lot of stuff that we don't know about what has gone on at the West Tigers in regards to Lachlan Galvin over the last year or so.
Steve, your crystal ball, Benji Marshall will be the coach of West Tigers in the year 2030. Buy or sell?
Yeah, I'm going to buy it. I am of the opinion that the playing group are right behind him, and you don't get the playing group behind you unless you're doing something right. I think he's starting to show the traits that he showed as a player, as a coach. He was a champion player, and I think that determination, that hard work, that self-analysis, that desire to get better, that raising of standards, all that stuff that made him a great player is starting to drip through into his coaching, and I think he's just going to get better and better. I made the comment on the pod, how much time do we have to give him to get better, because we want success now. And I don't know the answer to that, but I do think he's going to make it. And I'm getting more and more feedback that players just think the world of him. And that speaks a lot to me about what he's going to be like as he continues to develop. So as long as he's willing to stay, I think he very well could be here for a while.
Let's hope he is, because if he is, we're obviously doing well. But I mean, like, if this was it probably doesn't exist, but the Gold Coast Titans podcast or the North Queensland, like, how many fans could sit here today and confidently say that their coach will still be the coach in 2030? Probably not many. Maybe Serraldo, maybe Webster at the Warriors, maybe. I mean, Bellamy's sort of year to year. Bennett's not getting any younger. You go through the list, you could sort of see that pretty much any coach could not be around in 2030. So, Benji might actually be more skewed towards maybe being a greater chance than a lot of other coaches in the game at this point.
It was a pretty wild situation where he got thrown in, Rob, and obviously it was previous admin, but I've sort of, initially thinking it was no chance of working, I've sort of almost, I haven't done a backflip on it, but I'm more 55-45 that I think it can work now, given the roster that he's assembling. The wins he's having in recruitment room, and also, some wins on the field.
I was with you, Eddie, and I still felt like that at the start of the year, given that when I look back at all the great players in history who have become unbelievably good coaches, and I like racking my head over the last 50 years, the only person I can think of is Bob Fulton. I don't think any magnificent player has made it as a coach except for Bob Fulton.
Ricky Stewart, or he's not a magnificent player, just a good player?
Who's that?
Ricky Stewart?
Oh, Yeah, but I mean, okay, fair enough. He was probably, well, he revolutionised the halfback position, didn't he, with his kicking game and being able to torpedo pass both ways and the length that he could pass the ball. We say, yeah, perhaps Ricky Stewart was an oversight, but that said, Eddie, I think except for this year, Ricky's like he had that grand final in 2019. I look at that Canberra list every year and I think, why aren't you playing finals? So this year they're finally living up to their potential. But back on Benji, I'm selling this, but I'm selling this for the good reasons. I'm not selling it because I think he's going to fail. Given that he started preparing for the assistant coach's role in the latter half of 2022, by 2030, that would have been 7 or 8 years. And knowing Benji the way he, professes, and I genuinely believe this, that he's a family man and his kids are going to be older, I'm hoping by 2030 he's probably won a premiership, he's made a couple of finals with us, and you know what? He's done his time in coaching. He just wants to go on and pursue other ventures and enjoy his life a little bit better. I don't know if he'd want to be a full-time coach for that long, but if he's really, really enjoying it, then sure, he'll stay on. But I mean, his family is going to be bigger and have more needs, and I just don't think he needs to do it after 2030.
I'd certainly sign up for that, Rob, if a couple of finals appearances and a premiership. What do you think his biggest weakness is as a coach at the moment?
Look, Adele always reminds me of this every week, Eddie. From what I see on the field, I believe it's attention to detail. I also believe there's some tactical stuff. I mentioned the fact that how we handled a penalty when we were down 14-0 against the Cowboys the other week just shows me that they don't discuss how you play certain moments in games, and I'm not going to blame the players for their decision to take a tap when they should have gone for goal, or they should have dropped the ball 10 times before kicking for touch and killing as much clock as they could before Luai gets on. But when you see us run certain plays, you can tell they haven't practiced it enough. I mean, if they are, it's not showing on the field. So, again, I'm not there to see what they do. I think Benji's more that Wayne Bennett type of coach. I love you, play for me. And he does get the best out of players, which is the most important thing. I just think he needs, an attacking coach that can really be a bit more X's and O's, get the team in certain positions on the field. And how many times have all of us said, Eddie, whether it's, I've heard you guys say it as well, and definitely heard Steve say it a lot, how clunky we look when we run a backline shape. Mm-hmm. Like, we've said that for so long. Now, if you're looking clunky, it's not because you can't do it. It's because you're just not practicing it enough, or it's not important. And I understand Benji had to sort our defence out and our resolve, and he's improved in so many ways, and we are so competitive now, and there are so many ticks, and even though we're, in my opinion, 200% better than we were last year, it's probably not going to show in a finals appearance. So how do you quantify it? But again, we're not there to see what they're practicing, but at the same time, I don't think the players are dumb and they can't be taught how to run certain plays or do certain things. But yeah, sometimes we just don't look like an intelligent football team.
I agree with all that, Rob. I've been banging on about that for years. But I reckon the number one thing he needs to change, it's a bit of a mindset thing, is he needs to put people around him that are going to complement his deficiencies, not put his mates around him that he's comfortable with.
100%.
And that's how he's going to get better. He needs people that are going to challenge him, are going to sit around the coach's table and challenge his thinking and bring to the table what he's not able to bring to the table. Whereas I think up until now, he's wanted to go with people that are going to support him and back him and back his decision and not challenge him. And that's probably the worst thing a leader can do, I reckon.
Agreed, totally.
Couple of historical ones to finish buy, sell, hold, boys. Rob, is West Tigers' best ever side, if we were to name one, would Robbie Farah be your captain, buy or sell?
This could cause dramas with the Farah family for me. Robbie and I were very close till a couple of years ago, but we seem to have gone in different directions through no fault of each other. I can't put anyone but Scott Prince as captain. I mean, just for the fact that he won the comp, you have to remember that Mark O'Neill was the captain that year till he got injured. And, even Tim Sheens at the time thought, well, we're doing better under Prince. And look, Prince was our playmaker. He's the number one guy. And, he did the kicking game. He organised everything. He created everything. So for me, it'd be Scott Prince. But that said, I'm not detracting from how much Robbie loves the club, how passionate he was, how he bleed, and also how smart he was. He was very good with the referees. He got his way with that. But If you just force me to pick the best one, I'd go with Scott Prince. But no doubt, anyone that puts Robbie Farah as captain of our best ever team, I've got no argument with that either.
Joel?
Hard to argue with Scott Prince, given what was achieved. Robbie's right up there. A few other guys as well.
He did leave us high and dry, though, Joel. Scotty Prince. It could have been a dynasty, that, if he stuck around.
His wife was homesick, and if your wife is homesick, what are you going to do? Huh? A rugby league career, it's such a long thing.
I saw a podcast that he was on, I don't know what it was, but he said, and this was post-retirement, he said the biggest regret of my career was not sticking at the Tigers a bit longer, and I thought, geez, thanks for letting us know, Scott. I felt worse, Rob.
How could it not be?
Yeah, just going to say, if you remember at the end of 2005, Tim Sheen said, if we don't re-sign Scott Prince, I will resign as coach. So that's how important he believed it was. But Joel is 100% right. It was all about family. I mean, it had nothing to do with him not wanting to be at the Tigers. And I got to admit, I was quite upset in 2007 when he ran out to captain the Titans in 2007 that our crowd at Campbelltown could boo him. I was disgusted. This guy gave us our one moment of glory and we had fans booing him, and it just makes you realise how fickle fans can be and why they take the money and why they do what they do sometimes.
Steve, who would your captain be?
I've got nothing to add, Eddie, and all Prince. That. Scott Prince for me. But I'm hoping that in a couple of years' time we say Happy or Jerome.
Happy or Jerome, we'll see. Last one, Rob. Liam Fulton was the most underrated player in West Tigers history. Buying or selling?
No, I'm going to sell that, Eddie. And I'm not discrediting from what he brought to the group culturally and the jokes that he was and how much he loved. But you've got to remember, at the end of 2008, we did release him for a year to Huddersfield to play a bit of footy there. If he was that important, we would have kept him and not let him go. And he did come back a lot bigger and a lot better player, I believe, post that English trip. But no, I'm definitely going to sell that.
Who you got, though, Rob? Have you got a name? I wrote down just, when I was preparing for this show, I wrote down names like Chris Hyington. I wrote down Bo Ryan, which might be an unpopular one. Paul Fatawira. I actually wrote down Robert Louis. I know he terrible things off the field, but the 2 years he was here, I think we made top 4. Have you got a most underrated player in our history?
Is Bryce Gibbs underrated to you, Eddie?
Well,
is he a bigger name? Is he a bigger name? Because to me, I know he gave away a lot of penalties. That guy loved the club. He absolutely loved the club. So if I have to give you a name, that'd be one. I thought Mitch Brown, you mentioned Mitch Brown earlier, I thought he was great for us whenever he played, and I often wondered why he was on the bench and not getting a starting gig on the wing or centre. He had a lot of speed. He was a good tackler. I thought whenever he played first grade, he produced for us.
I've got one. He's off my Christmas card list at the moment, but successful with us across our 3 final series. A guy that was consistently different.
Don't say Fitzhenry, Joel, or I'm going to turn the podcast off.
Consistently different to what other forwards were providing, and that's Todd Payton. Like, the amount of stuff that Todd Payton did for us is phenomenal, and it's so sad to see him not here with the club.
I reckon he'll coach the West Tigers in the future, Todd Payton. Might be 2 years, hopefully it's 10 years' time, but I reckon he will. Let's not do that last one because we can combine it with this one. Steve, West Tigers side round 1, 2026. Now, there's no right or wrong answers here. I've told you guys you can include a signing or two if you want. You can dream big, or you can be like me and dream low and roll out the same side. But what do you got 1 to 5?
All right. Well, I've tried to be realistic, with a couple of aspirationals, but 1 to 5. Obviously, Buller at fullback. I've got Taruva and Skelton on the wing still. And I've got Taylor May and Staffatoa as our starting centres next year.
That sounds ideal, Rob. The only other kid I threw in was the youngster who I think is going to debut later this year, that Macassini.
Yeah, look, there's massive raps on Macassini. I keep getting told he's Israel Folau 2.0. I'm with Steve. I just went with those 5. Just for the sake of the argument, if there was probably a centre out there that I know is whose contract is up for discussion, I wouldn't mind going after someone like Katoni Staggs. But yeah, the 5 that Steve named, I think that'll be our starting 5 next year. And I'll just go further than that. I think if Taylor May gets his head right, he will be sensational for us. He can actually be a top 5 centre. When he's on, he's very, very good.
hope and pray there. Joel, any differences, 1 to 5?
No differences. Obviously, the X factor, well, 2 X factors to see how Macassini goes in first grade, and if he is included, and if he's brought in that time, and obviously how May goes. Other than that, I mean, yeah, I think that probably covers it. I can't see any significant changes with Taruva and Skelton. Maybe Skelton in the centres at some stage. I don't know, but yeah, I'm in agreement.
Steve, the halves. This one's going to be probably disagree. Probably have to do a bit of dreaming here. I want you to give me your 6, your 7, and your backup, whether it's a 14 or in reserve grade.
Oh, my 6 is Luai, and my 7's Fainu. Similar to what we were talking earlier, I think Latu Fainu is the natural 7, and I think Luai is the natural 6. So I hope that's how we go. My backup 14 is, again, based on what I said earlier, I'd be going a specialist. I'd be going to Silver at 14. But if you're talking about a backup at the moment, remembering that we've got, what's his name, coming back from South.
Bud Sullivan, mate. He just hit his calf today. I don't think we can't rely on him, can we?
Well, we can't rely on him, but at the moment he's coming back. But the other backup is going to be Heath Mason.
Yep.
And I think that's the important thing, like from my perspective anyway. I'm not all that disappointed we've missed out on Reynolds, or seemingly missed out on Reynolds, because I think the word backup is important. We can't block Fainu's go at first grade now. And if we go out and buy another star half, we're going to block his road to first grade. I think we need to go with those 2 and then get a couple of good backups, and they're the 2 that are sitting there on the shelf at the moment.
I'm sort of torn on this one, Rob. I know Reynolds is probably out of the picture now, but I was torn. I thought maybe a senior half for a year or 2, but what do you got?
I'm happy to run with Latu and Jerome. I really have nothing more to add on what Steve said, but I will throw a spanner in the works at the 3 of you, and maybe let me ask you guys a question. If the Roosters go cold on DCE, would you take him for a year and let Latu be that number 14?
I would. I actually had him right at the bottom of my page because I think, well, there's whispers they are going cold on him, and if you saw some of they've got a fair amount of depth in the halves, so I assume I'd be in a minority of Tigers fans thinking I would take DCE, but I don't know if I'd take him for 2. He'd probably want 2 years, Rob. That's the thing.
Well, he's definitely money hungry, but given that we allegedly offered Reynolds close to $1 million a year, I mean, if the Roosters go cold, he's only leaving Manly over money, and we're the club that's got the money. I'd be hesitant because, again, I think he'd just be one of those players that's coming for the pensioner fund, retirement village sort of contract. But, you know, at his best, he can produce. He's got a great kicking game, good organiser, can still score a try. But, yeah, if you watched him the last month or so, you'd say, hell no, I don't want him at our club. So, but I think Richo's desperate, and he keeps talking about, I want to win a premiership in the next 2 or 3 years. Well, if he was looking at Reynolds, I mean, you got a guy that was playing for Australia a year or 2 ago and a fixture at Origin halfback for the last 4 or 5 years.
John?
I can't give you an accurate answer at the moment, but if you ask me in 6 or 8 weeks, I might have a better idea. And that is basically we need to see how Latu goes in the next 6 to 8 weeks to get a better idea of where we're placed. At the moment, I see the argument both ways. It'd be great to have somebody to come in that's a well-rounded general, a proper halfback that can come in. But then, if you ask me in 6 or 8 weeks, it kind of might be like, geez, I'm glad we didn't spend $1 million on Adam Reynolds because we've got something here that will work. So I really don't know. And then there's some priorities in other positions that need to be strengthened. And I think if you strengthen those other positions, then I think that if Fainu and Luai can gel and work together, then we don't really need anything extra there. Maybe Sullivan comes back as a backup. The other factor in all of this as well is that we're pretty much whitewashing Adam Dewey out of the team as well. So I don't know where he may sit in terms of a New South Wales Cup contract next year. I'm not saying running him in the halves, but that's another situation that's going to have to be resolved at some stage.
Steve, just quickly, any interest, DCE, if the Roosters are saying no?
No, zero interest. If we're going to give Luai the keys to the city, we've got to give him the keys to the city, right? Got to let him run the team and let him run the halves. Whether he can do that at 6, doesn't have to be 7. He can do that at 6. Bring Ladu Fainu through, let them go together. I take Joel's point. Sorry, mate. About his injury, about his hamstrings. That's a worry, but. Can if he recovers and comes back fit, you've got to sort of take it that he's going to be okay, I suppose.
I just think, Rob, like whether you agree or disagree with Reynolds or DC, that let's say Luai and Fainu are the starters, I still think we need genuine cover. And I'm assuming Bud Sullivan's a no-go, even though he is coming back. Like maybe it's a Toby Sexton or someone. I just don't think we can, or even the third mate, I forget what his first name is, but he's been linked to the club a little bit, maybe through the two brothers, but I think we do need depth there, just given the fact that Lardu hasn't played much footy in 18 months.
Yeah, no doubt about that, Eddie. Look, one promising sign with Heath Mason was what he did in attack a couple of weeks ago against the Cowboys. He had a couple of offloads, he had a couple of line breaks. He looked dangerous. We just can't afford a half that lets 11 tackles missed. That has to be rectified. If he can work on his defence, he's probably good enough for a backup. And as I think it might have been Joel that mentioned it, we've got to work out what we do with Sullivan as well. There's $500,000 a year tied up there. He did a lot of good tackles on kick-out, by the way, today, and I thought, why can't you tackle like that against, for us when you're in our colours? But, yeah, it's a tricky one, but I don't think we should be spending any more money on the halves. I'm happy to go with Latu and Luai.
All right, Rob, what do you got forward pack? Let's go 8 to 13. We've obviously got a new signing in there, ideally. What would you like?
Okay, this will be a little bit controversial because I'm not going to go through 14 to 17, and you'll understand why when I do that. So my front row is Terrell May, Appy Coruscant, and Josh Kerr, if we could purchase him. My back row, given that we've signed KPP already, would be, Kai Pearce-Paul and Samuel Fainu. My lock forward, another one from left field, Adam Elliott. Okay, I just thought he's the sort of guy that can ball play. He's a solid defender. He can poke his nose through a line. But again, we're talking hypotheticals, but I think one of our biggest issues, other than right edge back rower, has been having a lock that is a bit of an all-rounder that can ball play and be a strong runner. So he fits the need in the sense that he's off contract.
Well, give us your bench now.
Okay, my bench, and I won't say the bench in order, but I've got Talon, obviously. I've got Seyfarth just for the fact that we've signed him for 3 years, so we're going to use him. It's not that I'd want him there, but the reality is that's who's going to be there. It's going to be Jack Bird. I love what Jack Bird's brought off the bench this year. And this is probably the controversial one for Fanua Bolle fans. I think Bolle is much better off the bench, and he gives us that impact. And if you get the sort of impact that Bolle gives you, that Jack Bird gives you, Seyfarth can come on and toil a little bit in the middle if that's who we've got. That's how I would go with my bench. So to be Talon, Seyfarth, Bird, and Bolle.
So if I'm right, Rob, I'm just writing notes. I might have got it wrong. You'd have like Alex Twal, Sione Fainu, maybe Adam Dewey as sort of backup players?
Yeah, look, in a perfect... Well, I don't think Adam will hang around, Eddie. I think Adam's going to be able to demand decent money from other clubs, especially someone looking for a goal kicker. And let's be really objective about this. Other than the fact that Adam lacks a lot of pace and a lot of thrust these days, his defensive reads and his IQ is immaculate. So he will be wanted by another club. And I see how some of those Cowboys centres tackled last night and other teams, how defensively weak they are. He'll get a gig somewhere else. I would love to keep him at our club because right now it seems we've only got 21 or 22 players and we need to be able to call on 25, so to speak. And Adam's on a minimum contract, so he's going to want more money. He's proven that he can play first grade, albeit he's not an attacking threat.
All right, Joel. Well, Rob had Josh Kerr and Adam Elliott, a couple of signings there. Have you got any players in your 8 to 17, I guess, apart from KPP?
Well, I haven't got any suggestions, but yeah, 9, 10, 11 and 12 are sorted. 8 and 13 are the two areas that I've got question marks over, and I agree, Pole better on the bench, my bench is Hunt, Sione Fainu, Pole, and then a utility, which could be a Bird or a Mason or a TDS, and Twal and Seyfarth sort of in the depth area. That's my feeling. So when I look at the team and I look at, we've already made one signing, we've got 2 more signings for 2026, I think, to get us pushing into that top 8, and that's a 13 and an 8. And I don't mind the suggestions that Rob's made, and they seem like pretty reasonable possibilities as well. So, yeah, they would certainly add something.
Forward pack and bench, Steve?
Well, I'm going to throw a curly one out. This is my one dream dream signing that I've put in the squad. And I'm going to say we're still lacking. We need an elite front rower. We need dynamic punch through the middle.
Payne Haas.
Come on down.
We've got to throw the kitchen sink at Payne Haas. Why not?
Western Sydney boy, he is. He must be or something, isn't he? He plays for the Blues, so he must be from
So
somewhere.
if we were able to pull off that miracle and get him to the club, my forward pack would be Sione Fainu and Payne Haas as starting props for the same reason that Rob said. I like the idea of Fanua off the bench, but this is the big one. And then the second row is the same, Pierce Paul and Sam Fainu. And then I'm moving Terrell May to 13. I reckon he could be, he can punch out them. He can punch out the minutes. He can play 80 minutes at 13. He can play a middle style, but he can also, he does have the mobility to be a link player. So, a bit controversial that one, but that's what I'd be.
I find that lock roll, Rob, is fascinating, especially the last 5 or 6 years. Like I just remember a guy like Kurt Mann. He was hated by the Newcastle fans and seen as undersized and not really a position. Now he's one of probably the most valuable players in the competition, and it almost is part of your spine now, the lock roll for a lot of teams. Yeah,
well, Canterbury have been blessed in the fact that those hybrid players that play multiple positions have kind of worked out for them just about in every case. You mentioned Todd Payton earlier. I'd love to have Todd Payton at 13 nowadays because he was pretty much our first receiver back in those glory days, especially 2010, 2011. Look, lock's going to be the hardest position. I can look. Terrell May does play a little bit of that lock role these days. He has taken the ball up and passed before the line a little bit. He doesn't hit the line as much as he was in the first 4 or 5 rounds of the year. So I get the logic behind what Steve's saying. He's busting out the minutes. Personally,
you get the logic, but you disagree, basically.
Well, I disagree, and I actually want to reduce his minutes. I know he wants to play those long minutes. I'm really scared of the fact that he could potentially be burned out. I really do. Like, it's great he's doing what he has to do now and averaging over 70 minutes a game, but it's he averaged 46 minutes a year or thereabouts for the Roosters last year, and we've upped that by over 50%. It's just such a big jump. I mean, I don't like the fact that he has to pace himself. I think he's elite. I think if we can play him for 50 minutes, it'd be great.
The irony is we've pretty much already got the perfect person. He's just not robust enough. He's just at that point in his career, and that's Jack Bird. He's your natural 13, but just not where he's at. Exactly where he's at in his career, unfortunately. Maybe Jack Bird 5 years ago. Perfect.
2025 rest of season forecast, Steve. Biggest fear, I think my biggest fear is that we're going to get into a wooden spoon race and somehow win a 4th straight wooden spoon. Look, I know I'm being negative, but I look at that table and I think there could be 5 or 6 teams that finish on 8 or 9 wins because I just don't think there's one bad side in the competition. I think even you see Gold Coast, they're capable of winning. What's your biggest fear heading into the last 11, 12 weeks?
Well, my biggest fear comes off last week against the Panthers, where we played good football and didn't get the 2 points. And to me, it's not inconceivable to consider we can play good football for the next 5-6 weeks and maybe only jag one win. Playing good, and that would be demoralising for the team, for the fan base, for everyone. That's my greatest fear, that the team continue to play with grit and effort and determination, but just don't ice games.
Rob, your biggest fear?
Not so much the fact that we might get our 4th wooden spoon, the fact that everyone's going to say nothing has changed when it certainly has changed. We have to remember we've got one of the most inexperienced rosters and worst rosters in the competition, and obviously we're all results orientated, and it's hard to keep telling our fans, be patient, be patient, be patient, but we're on a rotten part of the draw. I don't believe we're capable of winning a game till probably round 20 against the Titans, and the Titans played pretty good football against Manly the other night, so that's no given either. So, and I'm also worried about what you mentioned earlier. The media's just going to jump on our back. It's going to be all doom and gloom, and you're going to have members saying, I don't want to renew next year. I'm sick of this crap. Benji can't coach. All the negative talk that we get. So, and it's very hard to be positive when you're getting drowned with negativity. So that's probably my biggest fear, Eddie.
So I've just said pretty much the same thing, Rob. That I'm frightened we're not going to win. But surely, if we play the way we did against Penrith, and that mid-year slump of the Galvin situation is behind us, surely our team is good enough to beat Manly, the way Manly have been playing. Surely we are more consistent across the 80 minutes to beat the Roosters, unless we get the Roosters on a really red-hot day. We really should be aiming, like, Canberra's going to be hard, Warriors are going to be hard. Surely we've got to be aiming for 2 out of 4 over the next month, and then we've got the Titans twice. So there's another 2 wins that we should be aiming for. Surely we've got to have enough faith in the growth of this team that we're going to notch a few wins.
Look, I wish I had that faith, Steve. I still think we'll try our hardest and perform admirably, but at the same time, I'm a bit of a realist. Like, for example, we're playing Canberra Friday night. I mean, if I told you a month ago, late withdrawals are going to be Galvin and Luai, would you give us a chance of winning? I don't see us playing Luai, having a game on Wednesday night in Perth, flying back across the country.
I can't see us winning Friday night.
Yeah, I think we'll probably get touched up, to be fair. And we don't match up well against Canberra. They're one of the biggest packs in the comp. They've got big outside backs and they're in white-hot form. Manly, depends when you get Manly. So, yeah, but, I mean, we're playing them at Brookvale, aren't we? Or whatever they call Four Pines Stadium or whatever stupid name they've come up with for that
People
ground.
inside there, aren't they? For whatever.
Yeah. I don't want to steal your thunder on a few questions, Eddie, but do we have 17 top quality first graders? We're really scraping the bottom of the barrel now. We've had players that we haven't heard of play last week. Kit didn't even get a minute last game, so I don't know. I just think we're at the bottom of our roster, and it's very hard to compete.
Yeah, that was going to be my point, which is basically we've got the skeleton of a good team, but we have no fat whatsoever. So what we've seen is over the last 6 weeks, the depth start to be tested. And as soon as you lose that 2 or 3 players, we revert back from being an average team to a poor team at times. So that's definitely a factor, is how many more players we lose over the second half of the year. Obviously, it's great to see Luai selected for New South Wales. It would be great to see May selected for New South Wales, but that just cuts into the problem even more so. We probably got 15 first graders at best, and then you lose a couple, and you start to struggle against teams that have got more fat, that have got more ways of being able to cover over their deficiencies when guys are out. We just don't have that at the moment.
Joel, you're sort of the analogy man. You haven't brought one up for a while, but I don't have an analogy, but I was just thinking, how many times can you go to the well without a result? And I don't know if people work at the bottom of the well or what you do, whether you're cleaning up crap or whatever, but if you kept getting handed out $5 or whatever, eventually you're going to go to the bottom of the well and go, well, bugger this, I'm not going to put in. That's my worry, is that, like Steve said, with so many close losses and no reward, eventually it sort of breaks you.
Yeah, but I think there's a difference between a loss and if you look at the Penrith game, there's a difference between that game and that result in terms of the fans and the Storm game. So the Storm game, it was here we are again, we're back at square one, we're a terrible team, there's a mountain in front of us, and Penrith we got exactly the same amount of competition points from that Penrith game, but fans walked away disappointed but satisfied to see that there's improvement. And so long as we continue to be competitive and we don't suffer too many blowouts, I mean, realistically, to be a spoon team, you're getting 5 or 6 blowout scores against you in a year. We've had one and a half most times. So stay competitive, stay in the games, and like that Cronulla game, sometimes the wind is with you and the ball bounces your way, and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, I just think with that curse, Joel, like most years, teams that win 12 games make the finals, but the year we won 12 games, we missed it by 2 games. So I'm just like, wouldn't this be a year where the spoon team got 9 wins or something crazy like that? But Steve, let's finish on a positive. What are you most looking forward to the rest of the season seeing? Whether it be a player or a...
I just want to see the team finish strong. It has upset me so much. I've spoken to you guys about this so many times. In the last 2 or 3 seasons, we just give up on a season and tail away and put in some absolutely horrendous performances. Now, that era of West Tigers, I firmly believe, is now finished. It's gone. It's now past. So I just want to see us do exactly what we're just talking about, finish the season strong. I am more hopeful than, the bottom 3 or 4. I do think we can, push for the bottom of the 8. I think we can Maybe I think we'll probably finish 9th, 10th, 11th. I think that's realistic. I think we can get a few good wins. I just want to see us stick together and finish strong and not have those blowout scores where there's bugger all effort. That's what I'm hoping.
Just one thing I'd add to that. I mean, aside from the excitement of signing Payne Haas, Steve, you've got me really excited about that, so I'm looking forward to that.
Got a dream, mate. Got a dream.
Exactly. There isn't a terrible team this year, which does change the way the Wooden Spoon looks.
Parramatta without Mitch Moses might become that terrible team again.
Yeah.
But, he's going to come back after those 6 weeks. But anyway, I'm doomsday stuff here. But, Rob, what are you most looking forward to seeing the rest of the season?
It's a little bit of wishful thinking, but not too much. I'd like to see Latu Fainu injury-free for the rest of the year and show us that he's going to be our number 7 for as long as he wants that number 7 spot. And given that he's got a couple of brothers in the club, I think, he will really make a good fist of it. The one thing we've all noticed what he provides with our team is he straightens up our attack. He's going to give our outside backs more room. I don't think we need another half, so I want Latu to play as well as possible, even in losing performances, so that Richo says, well, hey, I don't need to go spend $900K, $1 million on another halfback. We've got it right here, right now. Let's just make sure we get his hamstrings right, and he's our future.
All right, boys. Well, I think that's a wrap. But, Rob, I think you said to me, might have been a text the other day, I don't even know what you guys look like, and I think you know why we don't do visuals now, because you've seen our melons. But on Tuesday night, it's going to be roles reversed. Tell us a little bit about what's going to be happening. I usually eat my dinner during our podcast because Gary just talks away for half an hour, but I'm going to be on my game Tuesday.
Mate, we might have a chat about it tomorrow as to what we'll discuss. Maybe we will talk about our best ever West Tigers 17, and obviously we'll preview the Canberra game on Friday night. I will leave the previewing for you guys because I'm scarred with negative tissue inside my brain, and I see those big monsters from Canberra and how well they're playing, and see that we're at the bottom of our depth. It's going to be a tough ask, and it's really hard to keep asking the fans to rock up to Campbelltown and support, and we're 0-3 out there, but we'll show up. We'll cheer, and hopefully they can pull off a miracle.
All right, Rob. Well, thank you for tonight. I'll see you at the Orange Grove Hotel Tuesday night. Joel, I think you're going to be in charge of our midweek podcast this week. Is that okay with you or not?
Yeah. I will make the effort. I will make myself available. I'm not like Lachlan Galvin, who's looking at other opportunities elsewhere and trying to get out. I will be here. I'm committed to the West Tigers cause.
Steve, you're welcome as well. You're the vice captain this week, I think. Although Gary will be, there's no way Gary will miss 2 in a row. He'll crack a tantrum if he.
Might have to fight for a spot, I reckon, on Wednesday night. I'll be around, mate. I'll be around.
All right, boys. Action-packed episode. Thanks again, Rob. Looking forward to Tuesday night. See you next time, boys.
Thanks, Eddie.
Thanks for having me, boys. Thank you.